Hello and welcome to APTU. Today our topic will be customer and vendor returns in AdvancePro. So customer returns in AdvancePro and vendor returns function exactly in the opposite way from sales and purchasing. So at a high level, you'll still place an order, you'll still deal with the warehouse, and then you'll deal with the finances. Now, if you'd like to review how these functions work in a customer sales and vendor purchase, go ahead and check out our past video on AdvanceProTech.com under the Resources tab. So in the case of a customer return, first you're going to issue a customer RMA, a customer return authorization, which is just like placing a sales order. Then you're going to receive the goods from the customer into your inventory. And finally, you'll have an optional step to create a credit memo or replace the item. Now, in the case of a vendor return, you will be issued an RMA from your vendor, and you'll create a vendor return in AdvancePro. Then you'll go ahead and ship the goods to the vendor, and finally, then you'll create a credit memo in AdvancePro. Now, in both cases, the credit memo will move to QuickBooks automatically if you're using QuickBooks Sync, just like a vendor bill or customer invoice. So let's jump real quick into AdvancePro. And to begin with, we're going to talk about a customer return. So here we are in AdvancePro. We're going to go over to the Returns tab in the center top of the screen. And we're going to go to Issue a New Customer Return. Just like customer orders, you can also view previous returns. Now, when we issue a return, the first thing we'll do is choose the customer that we're returning an item for. We can also specify the PO that they're returning against, the SKU that they're returning, or just the product name. When I click Find, it's going to search that customer's purchase history. And in this case, the customer has only purchased this particular t-shirt item. If you want to return some other item, for example, if this is a customer who purchased one of your items through a distributor and you don't have a purchase history, go ahead and check off Create a Return for products that don't have an order history in AdvancePro. There we go. And we'll go ahead and pick out a product that we're going to return today. We'll work with this one. We'll go ahead and create a return. So this brings us to an order entry screen, very, very similar to the previous screen, or to the sales screen that you might fill out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put in that we're going to be returning one of these items today, and we are required to give a reason for the return. So it could be broken, or in the case of clothing, it might not fit. It may not have been just the right tool for the customer, whatever reason you would like to record. So here I'm going to say it was broken. Okay. Now we have the option to choose a resolution. So if we choose credit, AdvancePro will create a credit memo, which will be sent to QuickBooks and can be used against other purchases from this customer, or can be issued as a payment to the customer. We can also choose to replace the item, in which case we'll go ahead and create an order for $0 to ship out another item as if it was sold at $0. So that's our ways that we can go ahead and resolve this particular customer return. I'm going to do a credit. We'll go ahead, we'll save this. If we like, we can print a copy of this RMA. AdvancePro is going to generate an RMA number here for you. If you want, you can also make an adjustment to that RMA number. In the upper right, you'll see that there is a space to refer to the original purchase order number as well. So if this is against a particular purchase order, that can be noted, and that'll go for a vendor return as well. Let's go ahead and process this order. And it's been sent to the warehouse. So now, if we go to the warehouse, normally with a customer sale, we would be shipping an order, but for a customer return, we're receiving those goods. So you'll see that under the receiving column as a customer return. Let's open up our customer returns to be received, and we'll come to our return. Here it is. Now, if we are returning an item that is serialized, we can go ahead and click on the lot or serial button, and it's going to bring up, if we used a particular purchase order, the serial number from that purchase order, so that we're able to verify that that's the item that we sold to the customer. And if it's related to warranty or return policy, we can see when we sold that customer that item. Okay? We're going to be receiving the one item that they're sending, and we have an option of choosing how we want to resolve inventory. We can send this right back to sellable inventory, in which case it will come into inventory immediately, or we have an option to choose to review. So if we choose to review, this item will come into inventory. Your inventory level will go up, but it will come in as a reserved item, so you can't sell it. So this is great if the item might need fixing, or just to be looked at and verified that it's a sellable item. And it might even be written off later on, but for now we can bring it right into our inventory. Let's go ahead and receive those goods. Now, when we bring in items to review, later on, we might have the manager come by and review that item, and we're able to get this little new button that you'll see in Manage Inventory. This is going to allow us to look at the items that are on review. I'll go ahead and click it, and choose either to put these items into inventory or to discard them. And if we want to put them into inventory, we'll choose the lot and serial numbers to put into inventory. And if we're using picking locations, we'll choose the picking locations to put them into. So we have a lot of flexibility here in terms of what we want to do with those products, in terms of putting them into inventory or not. So you'll see this on any item that's been returned into review. If you're using multiple warehouses, you will have to choose your warehouse to get in there. Now, moving ahead, we are going to talk about the credit memo that gets generated. So just like with customer invoices, this is going to be visible from View All Invoices and Credit Memos. We can go ahead and open that up. If you chose credit as a resolution for this particular return, you will find it under Credit Memos. And here it is for the given RMA. Ours was RMA number 4. We can go ahead and open that up. And here's our credit memo. Now in this case, we didn't give a return price, so we are being credited $0. But you can see there is a subtotal that gets applied where we're actually getting our credit back for the $225 that was spent on this item, or giving it back to the customer in this case. Okay, now this concludes our customer return process. Let's talk a little bit about the vendor return process, which does have a couple of differences. So we're going to head over to our returns tab once again. Let's say we've received those items and we've decided that they need to be returned to the vendor. It was actually our vendor's fault. We can go ahead and create a vendor return, and we choose our vendor now. So I'm going to choose the vendor that provides that particular item. We can search and see what we've purchased recently from that vendor. I'm going to choose the item that we got in, and I'm going to create a return. Just like before, if you're creating this and returning an item to a vendor that you've never purchased that item from before, you will have to create a return for products that don't have an order history in AdvancePro. And if you do that, you will have to associate the product with the vendor. So you might want to take a look at our creating a product or creating a vendor videos for details on how to do that. Let's go ahead and create a return. So here's a return. We're getting a credit, in this case, of $150. Just like before, we can choose to have our vendor replace this item instead. And we're going to return, in this case, we're using an actual order. So on that order, we only brought in 3. So we can choose to return up to 3. We're going to return 1. And I'm going to save that. Now when we process this, it does actually require us to be provided an RMA number. So we'll go ahead and put in an RMA number, and I'll go ahead and save this. We'll process this out, and it will go to the warehouse to be sent to the vendor. Now in some situations with certain types of returns where you want to get a credit, you might not actually be shipping this out, but you will at least need to dispose of the item or document it for the vendor. So this is how you might use this step in situations where you're not actually shipping the product to the vendor, but require that credit memo. Again, we can choose the lot and serial. If we're using picking locations, it'll tell us where to go get the item, and we can get the quantity to return. If this is not where our item that needs to be returned is located, we can go ahead and click on the location to choose other locations where this product exists in our warehouse, and we can go ahead and choose to take it out of some other location. Now, we can pick, we can pack, and we can ship just like previously. Each time, though, it will always be located under that vendor returns area, and you can see we've got picking, packing, and shipping filters available as we are choosing how we want to move forward with the shipment to the vendor. Now when I hit submit, there is a slight difference here in that we're not automatically creating a credit memo. We'll submit and ship those items out, and when a credit memo arrives, what we'll do is we'll go to the returns, we'll view all vendor returns. We're going to open up our particular vendor return, RMA 1212. And at this point, we can choose to create a credit memo optionally. So you may find that as well. I will actually have to ship that out. So let's ship that out. I'm going to choose to ship. If we like, we can put in a tracking number. Submit. There we go. And if we return now to our vendor return, we'll have some new options enabled. So I'll head back over to that return. Here we go. And you'll see now there's a create memo / replace option. So when I hit create memo, a credit memo will be generated, and then I can create that. It's also available to view this credit memo once it's been created in vendors view all bills and credit memos. And we can go over to the credit memo filter to go look at that later. Okay, so that is a little bit about our returns process and how that can be generated. Now, this concludes our tour of AdvancePro's return features.